In the mountains of wartime Yugoslavia, there were no convoys, no steady airdrops, and no supply chain to depend on. The Yugoslav partisans, a resistance force cut off from every formal army, fought deep in occupied territory, surrounded by Axis divisions. Yet they endured. Their secret wasn't numbers, equipment, or luck, it was resourcefulness. When the world burned around them, they turned waste into survival. Every melted rifle casing, every shard of tin, every torn scrap of fabric became a tool, a container, or a weapon. They didn't survive because they had supplies. They survived because they understood the value of what others called trash. The partisan survival kit was not issued from any armory. It evolved from the battlefield itself. It was a living set of essentials built entirely from scavenged material and personal innovation. Each item served more than one purpose, because the partisans had one rule above all others. If it can't be made from what's around you, it's not worth carrying. That philosophy turned them from fugitives into one of the most effective resistance forces of the entire war. By 1942, the country was torn apart. Bosnia, Montenegro and Croatia were full of hidden camps, where men and women fought with whatever they could make. They had no steady weapon shipments and often no food, but they had ingenuity. After every skirmish, partisans swept the field, not for medals or trophies, but for metal. Spent brass casings were melted down in crude forges, dug straight into the ground, fueled by firewood or animal fat. From that molten brass they shaped spoons, cups, buckles and buttons. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. A small brass cup could serve as a cooking pot, a water measure, or even a signal mirror in sunlight. The entire process was done by hand. Clay moulds replaced foundry tools, a broken rifle barrel became a pouring spout, and cold river water cooled the glowing metal. What's remarkable is how relevant that mindset remains today. Most survivalists won't be melting brass in the field, but the principle holds. Everything around you has potential if you learn to see it differently. Scrap aluminum or brass can be repurposed into windshields, candle guards, or tinderboxes with only a knife and patience. What mattered to the partisans wasn't equipment. It was adaptability. Even tin, one of the most overlooked materials of war, became a lifeline. Food tins, shrapnel and aircraft panels were hammered flat into sheets. With them, fighters made heat reflectors and stove panels that trapped warmth on bitter nights. A shallow trench lined with tin and a small flame became a makeshift heater that could save a life in the snow. They built collapsible stoves out of can fragments, three-sided windshields that could boil water using just a few twigs. With just a single tin can, they could make a lamp and cooker in one. A bit of cotton for a wick, a spoonful of animal fat or oil, and the night suddenly had warmth and light. That very same idea still works today. Cut and flatten a tin can, set it behind your stove, and you'll reflect twice as much heat back toward you. The efficiency gain can mean comfort instead of hypothermia. One of the most ingenious items in the partisan kit was their cloth oil filter. Petroleum fuels were rare, so they scavenged what they could from wrecked vehicles, mixed it with animal fat or pine resin, and strained it through tightly woven fabric from old uniforms. The filtered oil burned cleaner, and could power lamps built from tin shells or brass cups. The process was deceptively simple. A tin filled with dirty oil on top, a stretch cloth layer in between, and a clean container below. Gravity did the rest. The result was reusable fuel that burned for hours without thick smoke that could reveal their position. That trick still has value, you know. The same concept can purify cooking oil or filter rendered fat for lamp use during long-term emergencies. In a world that relies on disposables, learning to reclaim and reuse materials the way the partisans did can really extend survival when every resupply route is gone. Every detail of the Yugoslav partisan survival kit reflected one philosophy: self-reliance under siege. They didn't wait for supply drops or miracles. They made what they needed with their hands, their environment, and their will. Brass waste became tools, tin debris became heat, dirty oil became light. Every object had multiple lives because waste wasn't an option. Their innovation wasn't just technical, it was psychological. Each handmade piece represented defiance, a refusal to depend on anyone but themselves. In a war where isolation meant death, they built resilience from scraps. That spirit is what modern survivalists can still learn from. The mindset that keeps you alive isn't about gadgets. It's about mental discipline, the ability to adapt faster than conditions collapse. You can bring their philosophy into practice today. Take scraps of aluminum or tin and make a simple camping spoon or oil lamp. Try filtering used cooking oil through cloth and use it to fuel a small flame. Build a compact stove from discarded cans. These small acts of reconstruction train your mind to think like they did, to see use where others see waste. The Yugoslav partisan kit was never standardized, never produced in factories, and never the same twice. It evolved through necessity and instinct, a living system of problem-solving that kept an army alive without supply lines. Every cup, buckle and lamp carried the story of a fighter who refused to surrender to circumstance. That is what makes it timeless. Their tools were crude, but their philosophy was refined. Survival wasn't about having the best. It was about doing the most with the least. Every melted casing and repurposed can was a declaration of independence in the middle of occupation.